Welcome back to Politics Today, right here on Channels Television, broadcasting live from Lagos. We're now switching gears to election management, and I've already told you I have a senior advocate of Nigeria to help us explore this conversation. But a bit of a background: yesterday, the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC), led by its chairman, swore in 9 out of the 10 confirmed resident electoral commissioners who have now been posted to different states of the Federation. And of course, one was not sworn in because the person from his state has not finished his tenure. So as soon as that is over, he will be sworn in. So you can see the names there, the newly sworn in resident electoral commissioners. I may not be able to go through all of them as much as possible, but they've been sworn in, and those are the places they've been posted to. So what is the conversation about today? Before they were sworn in, as soon as the president nominated them, civil society organization, a coalition of civil society organizations, about 17 of them, I mean, including the Yegas of this world, the CISLAC, and all of that, raised an alarm that 4 of the nominees, they cannot vow that they are non-partisan. They believe that they have either partisan leaning, or they are loyal to the president or to the ruling party, or to some powerful individuals who are still in government, either in the executive or in the legislative arm. But as we speak, all 10 of them, I should say 9, have been sworn in, because the other will be sworn in. It's just a question of rules and regulation so that we don't have 2 states representation. So that's what we want to talk about today. And I'm being joined on the program by the senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Kayode Adelola. Thank you so much, sir, for coming on the program.
Thank you very much for having me again.
Now, there's a lot to explore in all of this. The background to it is that 4 nominees initially, where there was an alarm raised that they're not too sure about their integrity in terms of whether or not they are partisan. These are all allegations, by the way. And the reference is the 3rd schedule of the Constitution, paragraph F14, I think 2, and all of that. And they mentioned a few, but they wrote a petition. I mean, this coalition of civil society organization wrote a petition to the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, mentioning 2 specific names, and those names were from Akwa Ibom, Mr. Etekamba Umoren, who served in Godswill Akpabio's government, I think as the chief of staff in the government house, and also served as the SSG in his successor's government, and also Mr. Isa Shaka, who they feel has a bit of sympathy for the ruling party. But now, that is where things are. I don't know what you make of this, despite all the screams of the CSOs.
Thank you. Let's start from the very beginning. My attitude will be first to consider if the president has violated any law or provision of the Constitution in appointing this gentleman. What does the Constitution require? The president should appoint a person who is not below the age of 35, someone who ordinarily would have been qualified to be nominated and elected to the House of Representatives, and he must not be a member of a political party, and he must be of unquestionable integrity. Now the question is, have these requirements been fulfilled? If the president has appointed this gentleman, Etekamba Umore and Shaka from Edo State, and he presumes that they are of unquestionable integrity, and they're not members of any political party, whether APC, Labour Party, or whatever party for that matter, and they're not below the age of 35, then to that extent, he has fulfilled the requirements of the law. And I would believe that anyone who has been so appointed would have been screened internally by the president. And don't forget, he has executive powers provided under the Constitution. It's not an arbitrary authority or power given to him by the Constitution. He's allowed to nominate, to appoint these persons, of course, subject to the confirmation by the Senate. If the Senate has gone ahead to confirm these persons, then they're duly elected, they're duly appointed, and they're allowed to perform the role as resident electoral commissioners in the respective states. Now, some groups, civil liberty organizations, have come together to protest.
17 of them.
17 of them. Now, how did they come to a conclusion that these people are partisan? Now, the question is, partisanship relates to what? We all, to some extent, are partisan to the extent that you have your leanings, you have your sympathy to one political party or the other, or individual for that matter. That's in which case, anyone who is appointed would have a leaning of some sort. But what we do not want is someone who clearly will show bias. And I think that's the intent of the Constitution. I'll give an example. When it comes to the judiciary, if there's a likelihood of bias, a party could come and say before the judge, I would ask your lordship to recuse yourself in performing your role here as a judge and ask that this file be sent back to the admin judge for reassignment. I recall in my early days in practice when the Justice of the Supreme Court at the time was said to have received Mercedes-Benz cars from government, and the late Ganifa MSN, God rest his soul, proceeded to the courts. Chief F.R. Williams was representing the justices, and Chief Ganifa was on the other side. The judge who was presiding at the time was the Chief Judge of Lagos State, the late Justice S.O. Ilori. And Chief Ganifa at that time said, no, Justice Ilori, you cannot continue to sit here. I said, why? Because your daughter is married to Chief Williams' son. Now, if we have to use that as a parameter, then all of us lawyers are either friends, colleagues, or what have you. So who are you going to have as an independent person who must not appear before a court? A lot of the judges have either worked at the ministries or they have worked at law firms. So if I've worked in a law firm and a member of that firm comes before me, what should I do?
Let me, sorry for cutting in. Let me give you an example of what I saw them do. For one of them, they popped up a video where one of the politicians was making a declaration as to switching parties. And it was there on the podium, you know, holding broom and all of that, because they were very specific. I wish I could come with all the details as much as possible so you can see what I'm saying. So, and because he served in the government of the Senate president. And then the other one, they tracked to his, what's it called now? Social media post to say, look, by the language and the conduct of this individual, it is difficult for us to believe this person will be non-partisan, especially with reference to what has just happened in 2023 general election, where we're still trying to get over all of the things that happened. I don't know whether you see their point here.
Quite frankly, I will just come to that. The truth is, I have told you what the requirements of the Constitution are. And if those requirements have been fulfilled, to that extent, the president has done his bit. However, I quite agree that given the situation we're in this country, the president also must ensure some balance such that everyone goes to bed believing that they're part of the society, they're part of the political society, and they can be assured that whoever is presiding, either as an electoral commissioner or what have you, is not going to be so partisan as to affect their lot in the future elections. The truth is, I would say, for example, that if there is sufficient reason to believe that there's going to be some partisanship, the president ceases to be just a member of a political party upon his election and attainment of office. He becomes a father of the nation, so to speak. And as such, he cannot ignore the grumblings or the complaints of people, especially in the kind of situation we're talking about. But I have always said that members of the public organizations should begin to speak to members of the National Assembly. If we find this sort of lacuna in our Constitution, we should begin to ask that people should present bills to say that not only must the persons to be appointed a commissioner, to prepare commissioners should be non-members of political parties, but they also should have other requirements.
You know, Leonard said, why this is particularly important, I'm sure you remember the issue of Loretta Onoche.
Yes.
And all that played out, because this is a similar situation, but she was supposed to be a national commissioner, because there is a big trust issue in Nigeria. There's a trust deficit. We cannot deny that. So everyone is trying to make sure that as much as possible.
I agree with you.
Maybe not perfection, but something near dismissing certain kind of suspicion of any form. So what do you think in going forward the government can do to respond to the sensitivity of the public? That's on one hand, two questions in one. On the other hand, what do you think CSOs and maybe people like us in the media can do to ensure that, look, if there's a strong allegation against this person, it's followed through to the letter?
Now, how do you determine what is strong allegation? Because if care is not taken, we'll then make the president look like a wind vane. Whatever he does, people will rise up, and so he's always turning left or right, seeking to satisfy every group. That's not going to happen. That's why I keep saying the National Assembly is there for us to approach and say, look, there's a lacuna here. Let us break down what amounts to partisanship.
So maybe we can begin to say things like, just because we're wrapping up now, would you suggest things like, if you've ever served in a government, then places like INEC should not be a destination for you, no matter how much of a technocrat you were? Because serving in a government means that you served under a party, or do you a technocrat? Because that's where some of these things may be coming from.
But you see,
10 seconds.
Yes, but you see, then again, we also have people who decamp. So they're loyal to a political party today, and tomorrow they decamp. How do you determine the thoughts of a man? You appoint him today because he's a member of your party, and then tomorrow somebody's telling him something else. Please, once you leave office, join us. The truth is, we must begin to have trust in those we appoint. But then again, as I said, Mr. President should begin to look at these things because, like people use the word, the optics must be right.
Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Kayode Adelola, thank you so much for your insights for tonight on this issue of election management. It's a long conversation that we need to continue to have to make sure that we sanitize our institutions as much as possible. I must thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you very much. I quite agree with you. Thank you.